Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. Let's start off the third round with Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva, Director General Operations, Sri Lanka Navy. Rear Admiral De Silva, with regard to training of your staff, I'm pretty confident that everyone in the Navy are not geared up for rescue operations. However, you have deployed a number of sailors right now on the ground across 6 districts. What sort of training needs are required for the Navy at this point of time in terms of rescue operations? Again, rescue operations are not the core area of the Navy.
No, I must tell you that we have a specially trained unit to respond for disasters, especially floods. It's called 4RS. It's a very rapid action unit that respond quickly to flood relief duties. So this actually this unit derived from the rapid action boat squadron that was deployed at the time of the war. So after the war, we wanted to make use of this unit for a productive work, and we converted them to be the responders for the disasters. So this unit is very well trained. So they were the first to reach the locations when the flood struck our country recently. In addition to that, we have special boat squadron. They are also well trained for watermanship, so they can deal with the waterborne activities. In addition to both these groups, we have another reserve, that is the divers. So divers are also trained to respond in such calamities.
Rear Admiral De Silva, you spoke of the special boat squadron. What we have noticed in a situation like this, in a disaster situation, is the fact that however much boats you deploy, it doesn't seem enough. Is there a requirement of the Navy to deploy more boats, to purchase more boats? Is there a need? We heard Group Captain Gihan Senratna saying that it's always a need. You just can't say not enough. You just keep on buying. You just have to keep on purchasing. What are your thoughts on this?
Very true. For this disaster, we have deployed by now 120 boats.
120 boats have been deployed. How many personnel have you all deployed?
We have deployed over 1,180. The direct involvement, but indirectly more number has involved in flood relief activities.
In a situation like this, Rear Admiral Gihan De Silva, we saw in a situation where when the war was ravaged, most of the time leave was cancelled, every personnel attached to the military were asked to report to work. In a situation like this, what is the protocol like?
Now, in this particular case, we prepared our troops in advance. The moment the warning was given to the area commanders, they curtailed the leave and kept the people ready in all aspects to respond to the situation.
Do you think that the authorities need to take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach, like right now we are experiencing, when it comes to disaster-like situation?
In fact, it is proactive. We were ready to respond to this, but we had some challenges, as I mentioned. I believe that we responded timely to the situation, but in this particular flooding, 6 areas affected, 6 districts affected simultaneously. So Matara, Gaul were seriously affected. Subsequently, Ratnapura got affected. So we had to deploy our troops with boats to all 3 districts initially, and subsequently to the other districts. So whatever the resources we had, we deployed to these affected areas within very short time.
Thank you very much, Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva, Director General Operations, Sri Lanka Navy. I now move my attention to Group Captain Gihan Senratna, Air Force spokesperson. Group Captain Senratna, when it comes to disaster situation, I in fact pose this question to Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva as well. Let's say someone is stranded inside a house. I want to get your perspective as an airman. what must they really do? Let's say there is flood waters, is the only option to create a smoke and give an alarm. What would be the best option?
Smoke, something visual, because at the end of the day, what, like you said, if you have no means of signaling, visual signals are the only thing that you can use. Now, especially if you are looking at aircraft flying above, visual signal. Smoke is a very effective way of getting attention of anything. Now, like the now, because the air power is exercised in the third dimension, there is more of a likelihood that we will see it than even the Navy. Navy has to see it in the second dimension. Basically, if you have any kind of visual means by which you can attract attention, that is what you need to do. You need to go move up to higher ground. Essentially, you go up to the roof, go up to whatever you can, so that again you improve visibility, right? So visual means are the best, the easiest, I suppose, to come by if you look at any means of, especially in a situation like that. I would say that is the best.
What sorts of challenges did the Air Force face? In particular, if it's something like a tsunami, it's quite easy. There is no rain. It's much more, it's less challenging for the airmen to exercise their duty. But in a situation like a flood-like situation, like right now we experience, it's very challenging. You have to be cautious about the weather and so on and so forth. What sort of challenges did the Air Force face this time around when exercising their duties?
Right. Okay, now like for instance, now the workhorse in a situation like this, workhorses if you will, are the helicopters. Now helicopters again are very diverse, very versatile vessels. However, they do also have their limitations. Like for instance, a helicopter, when it comes down to low level, there is what is known as the downwash, or what is called, basically there is, you create, when a helicopter comes down, you create an air cushion underneath. Basically, the downwash of the helicopter rotors create a reverse flow, and that prevents the helicopter from coming down. It basically pushes the aircraft up. So now, when you're, especially when you're trying to rescue someone, either using a hook or or dropping somebody down, that becomes a challenge. Then also, now what we experienced with unfortunate incident that we had with our airman on the first day itself, that can happen. We are using mechanical devices, a cable, right, that is sent down. Now a person who's coming down on a cable, if you're coming down into water, if there is a strong current, that gets affected. Then wind is a very powerful deterrent, especially if you take helicopters. A helicopter is affected by the airflow. It actually stays up using air pressure. So the wind speed can be an issue, right? Then there are instances, especially this time we saw, I think I need to make special mention of the fact that I think the idea of transporting boats was brought up earlier. Now this time, I think for the first time in history, we transported boats under helicopters, underslung. We took boats to certain places like Bulat Sinhala. Why did we do that? Because even the helicopter, now usually we have a lot of, I said air power has reach. But in situations like this, you will encounter situations where even the helicopter cannot reach, because you may have areas where there are tree cover or buildings or cables like power lines, where we cannot take a helicopter and operate safely. So there, what we did was we took boats and we placed them where we could, where they could access, maybe under those obstacles. So there were numerous challenges like that.
Given what you just said right now, infrastructure development in the country, is that happening appropriately? Is that making the life of airmen easy in a situation like the disasters, which should be forecasted?
I would say that infrastructure development in this country is getting better. Definitely, it's getting better. Like for instance, now let's say one of the biggest obstacles for helicopters to operate is the power line, right? So not just here but anywhere. So overhead power lines are now being slowly replaced by underground power lines, which again is a major step. If you look, I'm sure it's not been done to facilitate aircraft coming in, but that is part of development. That again is something that is useful. Then, if you look at now, we haven't come to that stage as yet in Sri Lanka. But now look at now the reason why we use a lot of helicopters in these operations is that the fixed wing aircraft needs a runway to land on. Now, if you look at Germany, now there are roads, I think highways, which can be converted very quickly into runways where aircraft can land. Now that is part of, now we haven't gone to that level yet, but there is also another thing that we can do. We can increase the number of, building runways all over the country is not a practical solution. But if we can build roads that can double up as runways in an emergency situation, that would be an ideal situation.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Gihan Srinratna, Air Force spokesperson, for your thoughts in the third round. I now move my attention to Firzan Hashim, who is also a retired Group Captain, Country Director of APAD, Sri Lanka. Urban flooding, infrastructure development, is all this taking place in a systematic way? What are your thoughts on this?
The plain answer is no. But the positive is that the government is looking at putting a stop and starting anew. The main issue on urban flooding, as we all know, is that it creates havoc and the damages are massive. When you do talk about disasters, I think what is required to understand is you should not look at the disasters or your investments or what you put forward on the table to prevent disasters as a loss, but look at it as an investment. Say it says that if you do invest $1 on DRR, that you gain up to $7. So that's the payback that you get. So even in urban development, what you need to look at is how you can have this development to suit the development process of the whole country, and then ensure that you do not arrest development due to these disasters. So one is that I think with the megapolis also coming in, we should look at the sustainable development. We have a lot of frameworks, whether it is global framework, we talk about SDGs, we talk about Sendai frameworks, and the practices of other countries as well. We know about Japan. How much can we learn from Japan? And we are in this Asia-Pacific region, which also is prone to disasters. So how do we overcome this? So we need to learn from the other countries, and there is rapid development. How can you ensure within this rapid development that there is also inclusivity of sustainable development?
Firzan, you make a very interesting remark about urban flooding and what should be done in terms of DRR, how much money should be invested. I want to drag your attention to the May 14th, 2016 flooding. As of 25th May 2016, the death toll stood at 101, with just over 100 missing. Right now, with just 5 days of torrential rain, we have 177 dead and over 109 missing. What are we doing wrong? The number seems to be increasing every year.
See, generally, if you do look at the statistics worldwide, and I think even in Sri Lanka too, though the disasters have increased, what we have done is that the death toll has decreased if you compare worldwide and Sri Lanka. But this particular event is something, I think it's not acceptable to have so many deaths. And these two in areas which is inundated in a vast area, unlike in an urban area. But also the positives in an urban area is that you have a lot of people around you. You would have high-rise buildings. You could find shelter. But in areas like the rural areas, and when you have water 9 feet plus, and then you don't know where you are going, whether it is the road, the river, or where you are walking into, and when you do not have support from the others, then that's where I think we went wrong.
Hashim, it's very similar to what took place during the tsunami. People were not aware. Then we told ourselves, okay, we were not prepared. It's nearly 12 years after this tragedy strikes. Why aren't we prepared, even after 12 years, even after 13 years following such a big tragedy in a country like Sri Lanka?
That's an extremely good question. See, when the Nepal disaster did occur, we did go there to support the Nepalese there. The thing that came to mind was, if something like that or a tsunami did happen in Sri Lanka, where would we be? Would we be better than we responded during the tsunami? or whether we would be in the same instances where we would have to look at reinventing the wheel. I think this is where we need to harness resources. We are always working in compartments. What about the private sector? What about the media? What about linking with all these people around? It's not only about the government, it's the responsibility of everybody that we get together and understand what disasters are, what are the disaster risk reduction mechanisms that needs to be ensured that you would save your life and the others. Corporates, for that matter, had taken this very seriously. Some of the corporates, they do it to their employees as well. And these employees, if they are trained in DRR, what happens is they go back home to their villages as the first responders. So it needs to be it needs to be taken aware of that. What you invest, you will get a better payback. So I think it's about awareness, investment on DRR, and ensuring that everybody is aware of what they do and take care of themselves and the others.
Thank you very much, retired Group Captain Faizan Hashim, Country Director of APAT Sri Lanka. I now move my attention to Major General Mano Pereira, who is also retired, attached to the army of this nation. Major General Mano Pereira, you made some interesting remarks. You said that the Met Department cannot shy away from its responsibilities when it comes to a situation like this. Again, I want to drag your attention to the year 2004, tsunami. What happened? There was a public announcement by the Meteorological Department saying we were not aware. Even after the USGS issued a statement saying that a tsunami is going to strike. A disaster struck the coastal belt of Sri Lanka. 35,000 plus people were dead, and still 5,000 odd people are unaccounted for following the tsunami. Can the Met Department shy away from its responsibility? I hear this statement always: we are an island nation, hence we can't predict or forecast the weather. And this is something that I have heard repeatedly from those attached to the Met Department. Is that a logical enough answer for us to buy? I know we are an island nation. I presume that it is a bit difficult for us to forecast the weather, because in a country like the US, when they say 6 p.m. it's going to snow, 6:05 it will snow.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yes, very good. As public servants, we may be able to say that we were not aware. But then, as professionals in a trade, we cannot say that. Today, this Met data is available on open source. When you and I can access it, I do it. I go into the satellite imagery, which gives the volume of water vapor, the direction of wind, where the clouds are flowing. I mean, it's common sense beyond that. These people are trained. They have more equipment than the normal layman. They did not predict 100% the exact location, but then we have resources in our region. We are part of a region. This region has abundance of resources in this nature. The Indian Met Department has open source documents. Of course, if the government, with government to government cooperation, they should be able to get much better information. It's available. So with that, they should be able to say the volume of water that is going to, volume of rain that is going to come, the period that is going to affect the area, the amount of wind that is going to come, the strength of the wind, and that's how they predict right now. I mean, it's a matter of being more committed and getting everybody to do their own job.
What should be the role like of the Met Department?
Well, they are doing some part of their job, but then all what they need is a little bit more focus and commitment. There are professionals who are really qualified, who have the knowledge with them to do this job. It's a matter of proper guidance and proper focus being developed. Then I suppose when everybody gets together, we'll have a wonderful organization in this country. Now, you said in tsunami we were not prepared. Yes, we were not prepared. I was in Jaffna at that time. I was in charge of troops. We got a communication from those who are on the shoreline saying that the sea is coming in. So my first reaction was just ask them whether they want boats. Then the response was, what boats, we are going on top of coconut trees. But that's the awareness that we had. But then since then we have come a long way. Tsunami awareness, community based awareness programs, community based communication programs, all are being launched. But what happened was that we focused our attention only on tsunami, not the other disasters. The problem is, when fast onset disasters take place, there is very little reaction time. There is slow onset and rapid onset. Rapid onset is things like tsunamis, floods. Floods, of course, is in between, where the rains fall, where we know it's going to rain, and then the water, the inundation is going to go down to a certain area. There is certain degree of awareness, certain degree of time that you can play around with. But then things like landslide, you know, the post saturation of soil is going to increase over a period when there is high density, high volume of rainfall. Then we know that there can be a landslide. But slow onset, are we talking about slow onset disasters in this country? Very, very minimal. But what about the droughts? Those are slow onset. And even right now, there is drought in certain areas. We are not talking about it. We are always talking about rapid onset disaster, because that is what impacts. That is what creates a huge impact on the society, the livelihoods of the society, the socio-economic structure of the society.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Major General Mano Pereira. Before I open the floor for questions from our journalist, I have a question for Mr. Firzan Hashim, Country Director of APAT Sri Lanka. You see countries like India having buffer stocks in the event there is a drought. Do you think that Sri Lanka needs to have a buffer stock in the event there is a tragedy? Because every single time there is a tragedy, we request for international help. Do you think having a buffer stock, let's leave aside the economies for a second at the moment, let's not talk about whether Sri Lanka has the money to do that or not, but if you really look at whether we need a buffer stock at the moment, do you think that is the way to move forward?
I think preparedness is about planning for buffer stocks and having the buffer stocks. In any case, it is important that how you could harness these resources, whether it is coming from anywhere. Within your country, you need to look at taking care of your own selves. And it's important that we look at the preparedness angle of it. When you do prepare for the worst and have whatever stocks you need. Maybe it's not something that you can do it alone, but you should look around as to how you can get the others involved in all these issues. We tend to forget about, again, I reiterate the fact that we tend to forget about the private sector. How much of private sector is involved in the government's plan? We have development plans which are coming out from the divisional secretariat to district secretariat up to Colombo over to the national government. How much of consultations do we do with the private sector? Even if you are talking about stocks or stores or whatever, government can't do everything alone. You look at the private sector and the other sectors too to see how they can be a part and parcel of all these activities that the government is looking for. It's not about at the last moment looking at the private sector, okay, could you help? No, it's not about that, but it's about, are we prepared? Are we prepared together to ensure that we need to respond and also to have a sustainable development to ensure that we don't arrest the process of development.
So let me open the floor for questions. Let's start off with Sonali on the fourth round. Everyone is saying, Sonali, that you're silent. I'm not really sure what they mean, but you can always start now at least. Yes, go ahead.
For last. My first question is to Mr. Hashim. So when we speak about disaster management, disaster risk resilience, there are various stakeholders who are tasked with carrying out the work and creating awareness. Just to mention a few names, Ministry of Disaster Management, the DMC, NBRO, Geological Survey and Mines Bureau, Met Department, Irrigation Department. My question to you is, don't you think that it's a bit like that old adage, Andi Hakdena and the Kandahaliya, where everyone operates separately, but there is no coordination amongst them, and in the end the general public have to suffer. How do you see a way out of it?
Yes, I do agree. I do agree about that. It's about, again, bringing all these departments or the ministries together. As was mentioned by the General, the disaster management, the role of the Ministry of Disaster Management is actually coordination. And under the DMC, you would find those different departments that they have. And how can all these resources be put together? And why work in isolation? I think that is key. We are working in isolation in many, many areas, even within the ministry, even within the departments. And in the process, what we do is we forget to harness the resources. A simple thing that I would like to tell is that if you look at the coordination mechanism that you had in the last year's floods and this year, the EOC, Emergency Operations Center at the Disaster Management Center, was open to everybody this time over in comparison to the last year. You would see within the EOC, you would see the Army, the Navy, Air Force in a big way having its own setup there. And then you would find also the UN, the INGOs and the others. Even if you want to get something done, it's a matter of just speaking within the room. So that's the positive that you see. And we see quite a lot about how when everybody gets together, the work is done much faster. I think we are getting there, but then there needs to be quite a lot of commitment, and also institutionally we should not be divided.
Thank you. General Pereira, when we speak about developing community resilience for effective disaster recovery, how is it that in Sri Lanka we find that citizens who are affected by the disaster are often disempowered and very vulnerable, as opposed to having the knowledge to the capacity, the skills to sort of deal with the disaster? Every single time there's a flood, they act surprised. Where is this problem stemming from?
Yes, actually, to dwell a bit more, there's a bit of a difference between risk reduction and resilience. The final product of the good risk reduction is disaster resilience. Resilience is the ability of a society to spring back into normalcy as fast as possible, in very simple terms. And that depends as to how much of devastation has taken place, how much of resources they have lost, and how fast they have been empowered to come back. So the problem here is, as I said, I mean, we in this country we have been talking about disaster management, which basically is about preparedness and response. But we have avoided giving attention to prevention in most cases. We always talk about preparedness, but have we done, as you said, have we done enough? I should say no. Because if the communities are made aware, if their capacities have been developed into a level where their preparedness is good enough for them to achieve a greater degree of resilience, and that is what we should be aiming at. And then the question that you raised before to Hashim is where the problem lies. It's not really Andi Haddena's Kandahaliya. That is because we have this National Disaster Management Committee, which is very strong and which is a very capable thing, but it doesn't happen. So what we should do here is until we get these people together, and if you have seen in every disaster situation, who controls at the end? It is the military. Whether people like it or whether people want to accept it or not, I am saying this because there is a certain degree of resentment within the public service to say it is the military. Military should take the lead. For this, there is a disaster command or disaster relief and humanitarian assistance command that have been proposed, which will have a joint command sort of thing, like under the as it is happening right now. It is under the Chief of Defence Staff, but a disaster command will have all elements like what the operations room, emergency operations room that he said, and they will be coordinating with all these people, and that should not be only during the time of disaster. It has to function throughout, so that this coordination goes on, the preparedness is maintained, mitigation programs are going on. Unless we do that for a considerable period of time, we will not be able to get the people on board to be prepared.
Thank you very much. Group Captain Seniviratna, on the 23rd of May last year, we hosted the exact same show on disaster risk reduction and disaster resilience. This was right after the floods. Again, today, it looks like we haven't learnt much after. But progressively moving forward, how would you, in your professional capacity, offer some words of advice as to how we need to redirect ourselves to move forward in a progressive manner in dealing with disaster?
I would say that I think most of what needs to be done, I think in terms of coordinating of matters, all that I think was already addressed. But I would like to reiterate what I said earlier about technology. I think we are moving forward in technology. Technology is moving forward, and we are looking at a lot more opportunities opportunities where we get to know about what is going to happen. So I think what we see sometimes is that we do not make use of that, and I think you referred to the fact that people are not really making use of the resources that they have. That is what precisely what is happening, because what I'm trying to say is that if there may be shortcomings in terms of prediction, but we do have some predictions, and it's getting progressively better. But we remain a little indifferent sometimes to listen to that and to react to that until something comes to our, and there may be reasons. I mean, it has to do with culture. It may be.
Is it because it's not being packaged in the correct way?
Maybe, but again, how to package that to suit our need is something that we will also have to learn by trying it out. It will take a process.
But we're talking about the masses living across Sri Lanka.
Yes, that's again, like I said, it is the masses that will have to react. Now, the technology is available. It is not something that is exotic or something that is now difficult to understand. It is now coming down, and the more advanced it becomes simpler to understand. Now, what we are having is we have many avenues by which the warning can be given, but we still have this problem of people, the majority of the people not reacting, and it may be due to certain cultural restrictions that we have. We don't want to leave when I have a house. It may be that may be the only thing that sometimes somebody said that a couple of days ago something happened where they said that they were told to evacuate a house, and they said that something to the effect that I have put a roti to burn and I don't want to leave until that is eaten. Essentially, that is the attitude that we have. I have built this house with a lot of effort. I don't want to leave it, and we hope that the warnings that are coming, will not materialize. So that, I think, we need to move out of that mentality. When technology tells you it may not happen, if we are lucky, it may not happen, but it's still better for us to react to that and evacuate and then come back if nothing happens.
Mr. Hashim, one question from you. Short-sighted development projects. How do you see this in given the fact that Sri Lanka is moving towards accelerated development, given the fact that environmental impact assessment surveys, feasibility studies, all that needs to be done, but then it's very subjective. how does this impact or impinge upon natural disasters, and how do we move forward from this whole scenario?
You could see the results now. I mean, like, that's the issue that we have. We do not take care of the environment. We have to ensure that whatever the approvals are provided, you need to ensure that you go through the proper approvals, and also consult the experts and listen to them. Even in rapid development, what we have seen is that at any cost we have to finish this. But that's the issue that you would have, and you would see the results like what is happening now, whether it is urban flooding or otherwise, how much you lose. We saw at the PDNA, or the post-disaster need assessments last year, they talk about the losses to the private sector being so huge. Would investors come in if we have so much of losses? And then on the other side we say, okay, we have insured the whole of the population in Sri Lanka, and then we don't have to worry about it. But that's not building back better or building better. It's about, arresting that. You should go beyond that. Even if you are paid compensation, but the losses that you gain, you cannot get that. You cannot get that back.
But that's a technical response. General Mano, how would you realistically sort of put this in perspective, given the fact that proper procedure may not really be followed?
To add to that, let me tell you, we have a lot of condominiums, apartments coming up. Majority of them are coming up in places where there were just 1 or 2 houses. Do we have enough access routes in case of fire? Is there enough evacuation routes? No, most of them not. I know, because I was at one time the competent authority for high-rise buildings in Colombo, and some of the sites that I turned down are up there now. I like to see them, lovely apartments. But then if you try to move in there, it's very difficult. There is access only for one vehicle. Sometimes just no fire engines can go there. So where is this safety that we are talking about? There are disasters waiting to happen. And then there is also another factor. Short-sighted development, everybody wants to get on board, make a fast buck. But then the other peripheral development that has to take place, like wastewater management, the smart drainage system that has to come in, that takes time. That needs money. Who has to do that? It is the government. It is the civil authorities that has to do that. Then this has to be expedited. Somebody has to put down their head and say, and those who are controlling has to be empowered to prevent such irregularities being taking place. Unless we do that, unless we are all committed and the government is committed to do that, I don't think we can come and get at a solution right now.
Rear Admiral De Silva, I have a quick question for you before I move to Charita. We're talking about disaster right now. Let's talk about post-disaster. What should be the role of the military, the Air Force, the Navy and the Army? I'm sure you can speak on behalf of the Navy. What should be the post-disaster recovery effort look like in a post-flood situation?
After the relief, it is the post-relief work that we have to do. It's very important that we fulfill their basic need immediately after providing the relief. So they must have water, then drinking water from their own places, and they must go back to their respective location and start their normal life. For that they need some community needs support of the others. Even today the Navy has deployed a large number of troops to support the community in clearing their wells, and also supporting them to come back to their normal life.
With regard to the cleaning process that would take place, would the military be assisting the civilians who have been affected, whose houses are probably partially damaged? Is that something that the military would be doing in the next couple of days?
I don't think that we can assist in
the cleaning operations,
constructing their houses or renovating their houses, but the cleaning of wells is the main concern, and also we have to prevent epidemics being spreaded. So for that also we take action. Then giving the medical support for the needy people is also an essential thing after relief work.
How do you view the role of the Air Force, Group Captain? Do you think that the Air Force will be pitching in? Because when immediately a disaster strikes, you have a lot of stakeholders coming to help individuals. But once a disaster is faded away, people forget it very conveniently. And then the people are going to face the brunt. We saw this taking place after the floods in Kulonnava that took place last year. Everyone was there when the disaster struck, and when the flood waters receded, no one came for the help of the civilians in that area, residents of that area. How do you think that the military can play a role in post-disaster situations?
Okay, I think that if you look at the traditional role of the military, not much of a role for us to play in the post-disaster scenario. But now if you look at the present situation at the moment, like you said, the crisis, in my opinion, happens when, not right at the time of the disaster striking. It happens subsequently. And I think with any luck, if the weather improves in the next few days, we are looking at that stage now. And I think we have actually taken now even though, as I said earlier, the traditional role of the military doesn't involve this, it is actually the fact that the military has the resources in terms of manpower and the infrastructure and the equipment. We are geared to basically helping the civilian who is affected to get back on his feet. And that is what we can get involved in, and that is what we generally do get involved in. Because we have an organization that is fairly large in terms of manpower and equipment, we can go into a situation like that. Now the Navy, as was mentioned earlier, they are going in to clean the wells. Why are we doing that? So that they can sustain life after that. Now we are actually now in the last couple of days we started doing these lunch packets, meals. We are preparing meals. The Army, Navy, and the Air Force are getting together, preparing meals and sending it out to the affected areas. Why are we doing that? Because we are trying now. If you look at the civilian organizations trying to give out food and rations, great. They have it's a good-hearted effort, but if you have civilians going in there where disaster has struck and try to give meals and things like that, they are going to put themselves in danger. They are going to take, we are going to have to go in again and rescue them. So it is better for us to be involved in that. And why are we getting involved? Because we have the means to do so. We have the infrastructure, we have the people. We can do that, and we can utilize it so that it can be sent to the people who need it.
Admiral De Silva, I have a question for you. I think when we were compiling the 9 o'clock news bulletin yesterday, Nadim, I think you'll recall, there was a story about Gampaha, how the Navy was trying to clear a blockade. Was it Gampaha? Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think there was a similar situation in 2011. And the Navy officer who was giving the voice cut said that they're trying their best to clear the blockade. And was that the reason why
Charita, the location was Wakwal, not Gampaha. In fact, we learned a lesson from Gampaha flood in 2011. Whenever the water level rises, it is the concern of irrigation department and the disaster management as well as the Navy to check whether the river mouth or the bell mouth is blocked. Sometimes the estuaries are formed and the mouth is blocked, so that we need to open it up or widen it up as bigger as possible, so that the rate of water flow would increase. Otherwise, the inundation will remain for a while. So, in order to avoid that, we checked and opened the bell mouth. I remember in 2011, Gampaha district, the Navy officer was sent with a team to widen the bell opening of Nigambu in order to increase the water flow of the river of Dandugama Oya. But this officer realized that it was not the bell opening that caused the flooding, it was another block in between. So he realized that the temporary bridge erected by a constructor at highway has completely blocked the water flow. So there we learned a lesson actually. So when the visual was shown on TV 26th, I suppose. The Navy commander and the operation staff was in the operation room, and the Navy commander quickly decided to send a team to Akwella to clear this bridge. So we sent a team from Pune. The team was undergoing training there, and they were quickly sent to Akwella to clear the bridge in order to allow water to flow quickly. So that helped the water level in Baddagama area to go down quickly.
Now, we were also talking about logistics, and I know the Air Force has been airlifting boats. Now, we are an island, we have been engaged in trade, lots of seafarers from ancient times, and there are a lot of boat builders. The Navy builds boats, then the dockyard is there, a lot of private boat builders. Without transporting boats to affected areas, is there a better mechanism? Can we store boats in areas where you can easily access them, or maybe fly the crew to the location without airlifting boats?
That's a very good question, Charita. We have been trying to establish such units in almost all the districts. We have been successful in establishing only one unit in Anuradhapura. In fact, this same unit is established inside the Navy camp, where we have about 20 to 30 boats stored there with life jackets to respond for floods immediately. Even for this flood, we got down some boats and engine from this particular location. Similarly, if we can have units in all the districts to keep our boats and engines and service them time to time in order to make use of them when the disaster strikes, that would be the ideal way of doing a thing. I think the response would be very quick in such situation.
My last question, Shyam.
Yeah, very quickly, Charita.
To Group Captain Siniviratna. Does the Air Force have the capacity to do continuous or persistent air surveillance and share it real time with the ops room or the command center, which is, handling relief efforts, or the Army and the Air Force in the field? Do you have that capacity?
During a disaster?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And well, yes and no. I would say that in the last couple of days, I think we already made mention of the fact that not maybe here, the Beechcraft. We have an aircraft called the Beach. It's Beach King B200T. Now, this aircraft is equipped with surveillance equipment. Now, and it has a long endurance, which means it can stay aloft for a long period of time. And what it does is it basically overflies certain the affected areas and gives a bird's eye view of the situation as it develops. And this is important for the aircraft to get to where they want, and for the decision makers to see what is happening on the ground. So we can do that. And we also now, I think during the last stages of the war, we also had the UAVs. Now, unfortunately, the UAVs are a little they need a little bit of work at the moment. We are trying to acquire some new ones. They are a little old now, but the UAV is now used worldwide as a very effective way of looking at large areas of land for long periods of time. You have long endurance UAVs that actually we are looking at that, especially with our maritime boundaries. We are looking at acquiring UAVs for this specific purpose. Now, and they can be very useful in disaster situations. Yes, so yes, we do have the capacity. We do need some equipment that we need to buy in the. We're trying to convince the powers that be that we need to buy these. So if we can acquire them, yes, we can.
All the very best for that, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, Sonali, very, very quickly.
General Mano, moving forward, what is the role of children in contributing to disaster preparedness, response, recovery? How do we empower them with the access to resources and the skills so that they go home, they educate their parents, and ensure that we move forward in a positive, proactive manner?
I wonder whether you asked that question with something in your mind, because the best people to take a message home is either children, and especially those who are below grade 6. Parents, you and I'm not sure, sorry, whether you're
Sonali is not married, by the way. Yes.
Thanks,
most parents.
I'm sure the audience wanted to know that.
I just want to quickly
I
correct
never
mention
intended to bring anything of that nature.
When you said parents, you and I thought I need to correct you before further proceed with your message.
Parents generally listen to kids, not the adolescents. A child over 14-15 years of age, he will not come and convey a message to the parent because he feels he doesn't carry a message. But then, as you said, that's a very, very powerful tool. And they are the people who should be given the knowledge and little bit of awareness about disaster preparedness. Their message is much better taken than anybody else giving it to the parents. And if we can do that, that will be very, very effective. And may I add something to what the question that you raised from him? What role does the military have after response? Well, it's beyond after response. There is a huge role that is being played by the military, whether it is Army, Navy, Air Force, any other three. The first is disaster relief. Disaster relief, most of the relief camps are run by the military because others don't have the structure to do that. Now he mentioned about giving cooked food, warm food to the people. That is being done by the military. Maintaining a relief camp is not easy. You have to see into the hygiene, you have to see into the needs, you have to do a need assessments, you have to make sure that you allow social reinteraction of those people to bring their life back. So that is, first is relief, and then also during relief, the supply chain management of relief supplies that comes from agencies like Sirasa, which does a wonderful job. I was blamed at Meerabad for not allowing Sirasa Sahana Yatra to unload the relief supplies that came to Meerabad. I said, yes, I will not. There was a reason. The first load that came, it was distributed and people just took the stuff and went out of the camp. I am sure these compassionate people, the public of this country, they never want that to happen. They contribute something, imagine that it is for the betterment, not for those people to sell it. But by that time, very few people in the country knew that Koslanda was just one relief center. But I had 40 relief centers under me in that district. And what I did was I stored all that under the government agent, and thanks to Sirasa, those supplies lasted for one whole year, including water.
Thank you very much for that tribute,
So
Major General Mano Pereira. At the end of the day, it's the people who have contributed. I want to state at this instance, we just facilitate your contributions. And as Major General Mano Pereira said, the relief items that you gave when the Meerabad the landslide took place lasted for close to a year, which is of good news indeed. Before I wrap up tonight's show and go for the final round, I want to quickly ask a question from Group Captain Gihan Ratna, Air Force spokesperson. You all have been surveilling, having operations as far as the areas which are subjected to the landslides and the floods. Are the floodwaters really receding right now?
Yes, they are. They were up to this morning. Now this is not from what we saw from the air. This is what we have heard also. There is some. I think that if the rains recede, if the rains do not start again, I think we are looking at we can be optimistic that the flood waters will recede. Yes.
Thank you very much. So with that optimism, we're going for another short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. This is Face the Nation. Stay connected. Stay with us. There are two men. That is Firzan Hashim, who has been working tirelessly since this morning, and then we have Group Captain Gihan Ratna, who came a bit late but was working from this morning to ensure that he provides the required information to the media. And then we have Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva, Director General Operations Sri Lanka Navy as well, up from this morning trying to figure out how to assist the people in need. And then we have Retired Major Mano Pereira as well, who have been very instrumental in giving his thoughts on the show. So we're going for a quick commercial break. We want to end the show quite fast very soon, so we're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, it's the final round. Welcome back. This is Face the Nation. I want to start off the final round with Major General Mano Pereira, retired, who came to the spotlight with the media by the landslide, which took place several years ago. Major Mano Pereira, what is your message to the government, to the authorities at this point of time? We've done many things wrong, but we can look ahead. At least now we can learn from the lessons. What is your message?
Yes. I totally don't agree when you said we have done many things wrong. We have corrected a lot of the mistakes that we have made in the past, and we have come a long way. We have improved a long way. And disaster management today is in quite a good position. But only thing that is needed is coordination, proper coordination, and commitment by those who are responsible for various tasks. So it is the government who has to take the lead, get those people who are responsible to be more committed, and get it going as an organization. We can do wonders. Use the resources that are available to us within this country. We have very talented people, very competent people, and people with a very good knowledge base. It's a matter of using them for the betterment and for better results in the future. All this put together, our aim should be to reduce one more life lost in another disaster.
Thank you very much, Major Mano Pereira. Some interesting thoughts indeed. I now move my attention to Mr. Firzan Hashim, Country Director, APAT Sri Lanka, who was also a retired group captain. Mr. Hashim, post-disaster is what we should now focus on. That's very evident. The floodwaters are receding. What must we really do now? How must we gear up in the next few days? The time starts now.
Yes, I think what they all say is that it is fashionable to basically get involved in emergency relief, immediate response. But then, as you said earlier, you forget about them after some time. The most important is early recovery. How do you build back better? And this is where, when you look at it, the amount of the disaster which had occurred, and how do we get back to normalcy. Look at the schools which went underwater. Look at the children who have lost everything. The records in schools, whether they have their the documents with them, the school books. Can the school children go back home? What about the livelihoods that we are talking about? And not only the people who were affected in those areas, the businesses who provided items to these people at the retailers to sell. They would be losing over here. So the process of recovery is extremely important. And when you do that, it is also important that you do in a way that you don't create more harm to the people over there, and in a way where it is coordinated, where there is authority. It is not to be done in isolation. And this is where that you could do enough for the people who have already been subject to this disaster. What we need to ask ourselves is that, have we done better, or have we not done enough for the people who have lost their lives and the people who are in distress? So the only way that we can we can ensure that we provide them something better is to get involved in the recovery process.
Thank you very much, Mr. Firzan Hashim, retired group captain, country director of APAT Sri Lanka. The question that needs an answer is, have we done enough to those victims? I now move my attention to Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva, Director General Operations, Sri Lanka Navy. We got a lot of regional support. We got a lot of support from India. We saw India deploying a vessel with goods. How do you view the support given by the regional powers to assist Sri Lanka in a time of disaster?
Whenever Sri Lanka is struck by disasters, our neighbor countries extend their fullest support. The India responded quickly on 26th by sending a vessel called Indian naval ship Kerch on 26th with relief work, immediate relief work. They provided us with boat and medical team to be dispatched to affected area, and we supported in sending them. Then the next day, 27th, they sent another vessel with more relief. Indian naval ship Sardul came, and there will be another ship coming tomorrow with the relief. In addition to that, Pakistan Navy has also will also be sending another ship called Zulfikar with relief to be given to the people in affected areas.
Thank you very much for your thoughts as well, Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva. Fully appreciate the commitment and the work that you all have done over the last couple of days. I now move my attention to Group Captain Gihan Seniratne, Air Force spokesperson. What is your message post-disaster? What is your message to the public now, Mr. Seniratne? You witnessed it all over the last few days. You all were on scene immediately. And what is the message you have for them?
Yes, I think today, traditionally security used to be looked at as something that was protection from external threats. Today, security is being looked at in a different way. Today, security includes the safety of your home, the safety of your livelihood. So, security encompasses all of this. And what we offer, what we bring into the equation, as I said, air power, is something that can go a long way in ensuring that security not only from external threats but from disasters as well. However, we cannot do it alone. We have to, at the end of the day, it is the man who is, the man or the woman on ground who is affected by this disaster who can mitigate some of the dangers that they will face. So that is something. Now, yes, when a disaster strikes, we can come in and help. We can do little. Where if most of the action has to be done by the man on the ground, by the person on the ground, the people who will become, it is up to you to decide whether you are going to be a victim or not. There is an element of control that you have, and that is to react to I said the advantage of technology. Technology can give us the warning, give you the warning, but if you don't heed it, you cannot make use of that. So that is what I think that we need to do. As we go, as we learn from these experiences, we need to know if we get the warning, we need to react to that. So that is, I think, the message that I would like to leave behind.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Gihan Seniratne, for joining us this evening on the show. Very simply put together, what Group Captain Seniratne was trying to say is, trust your Lord, but tie your camel, because when you're in a desert and if you think that the God is going to protect your camel, it won't happen. You have to tie your camel. It's your life at the end of the day. Thank you very much, Major General Manu Pereira, for joining us. Thank you very much, Rear Admiral P.L. De Silva, Director General Operations Sri Lanka Navy, for joining us. Thank you very much, Firzan Hashim, Country Director, APAS Sri Lanka. A job well done during the course of the day. A lot of statements, communiques were issued by your organization. One of the ways in which technology has helped as far as dissemination of information is concerned. Thank you very much, Group Captain Firzan Hashim, for joining us. And thank you very much, Group Captain Gihan Seniratne, as Air Force spokesperson, for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, Nadeem, as always. Thank you very much, Charita, for joining us this evening. And thank you very much, Sonali, for joining us this evening. Still a singer, by the way. Just thought before I leave you tonight. She said something very interesting. She said, "Andi haddinage kandahaliyavage." Usually, Sonali, you translate that into English as well. So I take the privilege of doing that today. The 7 gypsies and their bowl of porridge. Thank you very much for joining us this evening as well, Sonali. It's always a pleasure to have you on board. It's quite interestingly, we lost an airman a few days ago following this inclement weather conditions, but there was a very good news this morning. That was a pregnant 19-year-old woman who was being airlifted to Ratnapura from the Kalawana hospital has given birth to a baby boy on board an Mi-17 helicopter. Good news indeed. Good job, Air Force spokesperson, Group Captain Gihan Seniratne and his team. It's always, when you lose a life, there's always another life that you can always talk about, and that is what life at the end of the day is all about. I leave you tonight with a quote, as I always do. Wherever you turn, you can find someone who needs you. Even if it is a little thing, do something for which there is no pay but the privilege of doing it. You have done well. The reward for work well done is the opportunity to do more. Take care and good night.